Hey guys, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm not super prepared for this video. I got off work today and I had to run an errand for some friends down in Anthony, and I ended up in Texas. And I got the urge to record a video. I didn't have much of my video gear with me. I didn't really have a video planned, but I had these two knives and an idea for a video that's been bouncing around my head for a while, so we're just going to try and do it, kind of off cuff without a whole lot of preparing or script writing or anything like that. And speaking of being down in Texas, I got the urge to film this video. I was like, this is going to be the first video I filmed in Texas. And I've talked about this in other videos before. A big part of my channel is like, the scenery I show for review cutting and stuff like that. I do, different videos about doing other things. And I've never done a review cutting outside of New Mexico. Even though I'm outside New Mexico, pretty frequently, the Four Corner states and Texas, especially Colorado and Utah are the other Four Corner states besides New Mexico that I'm in quite a bit, but also in Arizona quite a lot. In fact, I'm probably going to be there this coming weekend for the Tucson Gem Mineral Show. But I've never done any review cutting over there. And I've always kind of thought it'd be cool to do that, right? Get some new scenery and stuff. And I think the reasons I haven't is because when I'm in those other states, it's either because I'm busy, doing something else, don't have time to do review cutting or anything, or it's because I'm there for a vacation, I'm taking a break, so why would I be filming YouTube videos, right? Still though, I'm in Texas quite a bit. I do a lot of hiking the Franklins, a pretty cool little mountain range. But I am not in Texas anymore. I got down there, the traffic was terrible, which, by the way, there's these signs going to Texas, drive friendly, it's the Texas way. Bullshit. I love you guys. I love you guys. Old Tonto guy, channel member, and I know you're watching this video. He's from Texas. I love you guys. You do not drive friendly. Friendly driving my ass. Now, New Mexicans, also not the best drivers. A lot of New Mexicans, don't know what a blinker is. But Texans are downright malicious drivers. Just driving down today, I saw 3 wrecks almost happen, honking out the wazoo, people swerving in. I almost died once. Malicious drivers. In fact, I-10 between Las Cruces and El Paso is one of the worst stretches of road ever. In the past 3 years, I've seen, I think, 3 semi-trucks on fire on the side of the road, 4 or 5 passenger vehicles on fire on the side of the road, several rollovers, all kinds of crashes, just absolute insanity. In fact, I had a friend who every Thursday night, she'd go with her friends down to this little bar called A Little Bit of Texas in El Paso, if you know it. And Thursday nights was ladies' nights. And, they'd get hammered. And then they'd come back on that road. And I found out, I was like, oh, fuck no. You guys are going to get killed. So I kind of became their designated driver and had some adventures doing stuff like that. But anyways, we're getting way off topic. As I was driving, the traffic was really, really bad. And I decided I was going to take this other road that I had never been down before. I was like, I'll take that road, go find a nice place to pull over and film. And ended up back in New Mexico. So here we are, back in New Mexico, which I'm not complaining about. New Mexico is the best state, and I love it. But one of these days, I should do a review cutting somewhere else, just for variety. And even in New Mexico, there's so many places that I think are so beautiful that I don't do review cutting at because I'm just either they're, a little bit out of my way to get to, or it's a little bit hard to get there, or when I'm there, I'm doing, work or something else. So even in New Mexico, a state that I know back and forward, there's only, a handful of places where I routinely do review cutting because, I don't know, people are creatures of habit, right? Anyways, all of that aside, we're going to be talking about the Cold Steel Fin Wolf and the Cold Steel Fin Hawk, and specifically, we're going to be talking about Scandi Grinds. So I guess actually we're not talking about these knives in particular. We're talking about Scandi Grinds. Now these knives were sent to the channel by Old Tonto Guy, who I mentioned earlier. So thank you so much for that. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the experiences I've been having with these knives so far. So growing up, I never used a Scandi grind. Never. And in fact, I never used a Scandi grind or even hardly knew what they were until I started the channel. And I think I've only owned one knife that was Scandi ground before these ones. And it's a little bit surprising to me because a Scandi grind is associated with bushcraft and woodworking, right? And for those of you who don't know, I spent my teenage years in northern New Mexico in the Rockies. Part of my grandpa's side of the family, on my dad's side of the family, are all loggers. And so, like my dad, for example, he worked in the logwoods when he was a young man, working through college and stuff. Austin, my cousin Austin, he's been on the channel several times. He worked in the logwoods. I never worked in the logwoods. I worked as a cowboy and things like that, but been around the logwoods. My grandpa was a logger. Obviously, through my cowboying and stuff, I learned a lot of bushcraft from my grandpa, from my dad. I was, active in scouts. My dad was a scoutmaster. And so growing up, I was always in the woods, right? And so I learned how to build shelters and how to set traps and, how to take care of myself in the mountains. But Scandi ground knives were never a part of that, ever. And in fact, I'll be honest with you, fixed blade knives kind of weren't a big part of that either. When I was learning how to build shelters and, do these other, survival gear type things, build a fire without matches, all that stuff, my dad, my grandpa, everyone that kind of instructed me through this was like, have a hatchet with you, right? And so I grew up learning to use a hatchet or always having a hatchet to do your splitting and your chopping and stuff like that. And anything you needed a knife for, you had, your pocket knife. Fixed blade knives, for me growing up, were generally only used for breaking down game or food preparation, right? Like everything else, if you're going to chop wood, you got an axe or a hatchet. If you're going to cut rope and stuff, you got your pocket knife, right? If you're going to skin an elk, that's what your fixed blade's for, your buck knife, your, like the 119, the buck 119, things like that. And so the style that, the use that these types of blades were made for was not something I was ever really exposed to until I started like this channel and started doing things like that. And obviously, nowadays I'm a big fan of using survival fixed blades. Even my Cold Seal SRK that I've shown so many times on the channel, that is kind of my go-to outdoor knife because I use that knife for my splitting and chopping and things like that because it can work in a pinch. And it saves me having to carry around a hatchet. And I'll be honest with you, I've had conversations with my grandpa about, using my SRK. And there's kind of this joke. One time my grandpa and I were coming back from the woods. We've been building some fence, and we stopped by the logwoods, the camp where his brother and his brother's sons were cutting some trees. And we stopped by, and I'm wearing my Cold Seal SRK, and one of my older cousins comes up to me, he's like, what is that? A Rambo knife? Is that your Rambo knife? Because it's just not the way they do things. And my grandpa would even kind of give me a hard time, like, what you doing with that, right? And I told him, it's for like building a shelter. It's for, chopping, splitting wood, stuff like that. He looked at me, he's like, we've got a chainsaw in the truck. We've got an axe behind the back seat. Like, what are you doing? And then we got caught in a rainstorm, my grandpa and I, away from the truck and stuff. And I did use that knife to build a shelter. And I've used that knife to do all kinds of things. And so he's kind of shut up about it recently. But, just kind of not the way, we would do things, right? So I have gotten very comfortable with using, my fixed blade knife as a survival implement, as a woodworking tool. And so I've never really found the need for a Scandi ground knife. Now I get why people like them, right? These do process wood really, really well. If you're doing whittling and things like that, a Scandi grind works fantastic. And basically what it is, for those of you that don't know, let's see if we can compare against, what knife do I have here? See what I got in my pocket right now. Steel wheel sedge. It's not a knife to demonstrate this on. Anyways, this is the bevel right here. Normally, like on a normal knife, normal knife as if that's a thing, right? So this knife here, we have the grind, which is also the flats of the blade, because this is a fully flat ground blade. And then the edge right there, that's the edge bevel, right? Just that tiny part of the blade here. On this part, you have edge bevel and then flat. You really don't have a grind on this knife. Oh, I do have a knife that we might be able to show it off with. I forgot. So yeah, like on the Civivi Odium, up here, there's the flat, here's the grind, and there's the edge bevel. On this knife, you just have the flats and then the edge bevel. And so sharpening these is really, really easy in the field. That gives you your angle. You set this on a stone with this whole part lined up there, and you can sharpen it, and that's really, really cool. And the edge comes down to basically nothing, a zero grind, right? And you can reprofile these and put, all kinds of different edges on there, but what this gives you is basically a knife that performs very similar to a chisel. This is great for notching. This is great for breaking down wood. Is it great for EDC? This is a folding knife, right? And I've been EDCing this knife a lot. What do I think about it in that way? And I'm probably going to do a full video, or, like one of my I EDC'd blank for 2 weeks, I EDC'd a Scandi grind for 2 weeks. But right off the bat, just some of my thoughts are, it cuts very differently, right? With this knife, I make a cut and it's immediately being wedged apart by this. And once the material you're cutting gets by here, the rest of the blade really doesn't, I don't know how to explain this. This does all your cutting right here, right? And that's why on a knife like here, let's bring out that steel wheel sedge, full flat grind. Once I cut into something with the edge, that edge makes that cut, the rest of the blade acts as kind of a wedge, parting the material. Sharp edge goes through, and the material is parted by the rest of the blade following behind the edge. It splits material like that. With this Odium, it has, kind of same thing, that flat grind splits material, and then you get up here to the flat, and the material can, sometimes it's just done. At that point, the flat doesn't really contribute to the motion of cutting through the material. And it's the same way with this blade. Once you get past here, the rest of the blade doesn't really do anything. You've made your cut, and then the rest of by the time you get here, you have such a wide cut through your material that it just kind of is out of the way for the rest of the blade. I know I'm explaining that terribly. Again, not a scripted video right now, but hopefully I'll be able to explain that a little bit better when I do the IEDC'd Scandi Grinds for 2 weeks. But what you get is a knife that is very acutely sharp, a knife that really, really bites very, very well into material and gives you a very different feeling while you're cutting. It's a very hard thing to explain, but it's noticeably different. Now, obviously, with the Finn Hawk, this is kind of a bushcraft style knife. And I made a short the other day. I'm not sure if it'll be out by the time you're seeing this video, but I took this hiking with me, and I was really impressed. The whole knife is a really, really light, compact hiking package. I think this is a great fixed blade for hiking, not just because it's lightweight and easy to carry, but also because what am I going to need a fixed blade for on a hike, right? Well, if shit goes sideways, I can use a fixed blade to build a shelter, right? And a knife that's made for, dealing with wood is a great tool for that. And by the way, a Scandi grind is excellent for batoning because of kind of what I was trying to explain earlier with the way that the blade passes through material, and also the fact that this edge works kind of like a chisel. You get that in there, you hit, and this is like an axe. You know, that part of the wood or that part of the blade will split the wood open, and then the rest of the blades, and this is just a straight up flat up through here, it's out of the way. It's basically done. It doesn't do anything. This does all the work. That splits the wood, and then the rest of the knife just goes right through, right, without really interacting with the wood that you're splitting. Again, a little bit of a hard thing to explain, but I hope you guys can kind of at least follow along with what I'm getting at. And by the way, if you've ever used a Scandi ground knife, I'm sure you can probably get to what I'm talking about. But that's kind of what I wanted to just discuss in this video is Scandi grinds are not something that I grew up using. This was kind of a foreign thing to me. And I don't know if, obviously, I think Scandi grinds are very popular in other parts of the world. You know, I watch the Dutch bushcrafting videos. It's a Scandi grind. It's from Scandinavia, right? Which, ironically, that's where my family is originally from. My last name is Dutch. So I'm sure it's a much bigger thing over there than it is here. I don't know about other parts of the U.S. Obviously, for me in northern New Mexico, it wasn't a big thing. In southern New Mexico, I don't think it's a real big thing either. I will say, I have noticed that living in southern New Mexico, people are a little more like big fixed blades are a little bit more of a thing than up north, right? Which is interesting to me. I don't know if it's maybe the Mexican influence with machetes and stuff like that, or what it is, but you know, I see people regularly using and carrying bigger fixed blades down south a lot more than I see that up north. Like I said, up north it was more like day-to-day cutting, pocket knife, skinning an animal. That's what your big fixed blade is for. Everything that has to do with woodwork, you use your chainsaw and your axe, right? Which, again, this might be the right way to do it. You know, tools are built for a purpose. Not everything is multifunctional, but, you know, just an interesting thing that I've noticed. But I think that's going to be about it for today's video. Again, just kind of rambly off the cuff video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Oh, by the way, you can see back here, we got another pool noodle. The other day I was in a Dollar Tree and I saw they had this big box of pool noodles like thrown off in the corner, and I went and I grabbed them and I was like, yes, we've got pool noodles again for review cutting, because I was just about out. I've got about this much pool noodle left, so good to have that guy as backup. But there we go, guys. Quick shout out to, channel members. I already mentioned Old Tonto Guy, who very graciously donated these knives to the channel, which is just incredible. He's a channel member at the Cowboy level, as well as Sharpened Blade is a member at the Cowboy level. If you want to become a channel member, click the join button down below. Get access to all kinds of cool perks, emojis, you get a badge by your name, you get early access to videos, depending on what tier you join at. You know, members only posts, exclusive content if you join at that level, all that stuff. I'm really bad at shilling for myself. But, there you go. That's what you can do if you're so inclined. But yeah, and Sharpened Blade is a member of the Cowboy level too, if I didn't already say it. So there we go. Also, when we get to 8 members, we're doing a giveaway. So giveaways are open to all members at all levels. So hooray. But yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.